Hi everyone. I hope you're all having a great day or had a great day or are starting a new great day. And thank you for watching the stream or the video on YouTube if you are watching it on YouTube. My name is Jayne and I am the engineering manager for the DevRel team over at Daily, which is yeah, Daily. Uh, So today, as you might have seen, is the third part of the uh, spatialization demo series, where I show the demo that we created about spatial audio in a 2D environment, sort of a virtual workplace. Um, and I am going to focus today on the 2D environment itself. So how did we build this with PixiJS, and and also a little bit about how you can get the data from other uh, from the other users and use that. Um, so let's just get right into it. Oh, before I start, as you can see, I have a new thing to my background. It's a neon cat from. I asked around like, what should I add for the next stream? And my colleague Pavel said, well, maybe this one. So if you have any cool ideas of what to add to my background, just let me know in the chat, and then maybe next time I'll have it there. Anyway, that's probably not that interesting to you, but for me it's fun. So let's go here to the demo itself and show a little bit what we have created, and so that you have the context if you maybe missed the first one or two streams, which is totally fine, by the way, because they're all separate. So if you haven't watched the first two, then you can just continue watching. So okay, mental notes again. We disable the OBS camera. Like, I have OBS virtual camera and I don't know why it keeps going back to that. Okay, so this is what we have. This is a 2D environment that you can walk through with your keyboard. And if there are people near you, then they can hear you talk. If you move away from people, the sound gets quieter. Or you can go into a room and then you have a sort of a mode on the top right of your screen where everybody in the same room can hear each other, plus the one doing the broadcasts. You can hear that person as well. So that's being broadcasted to all rooms. And then we also have these tables here where I cannot walk through, like the rectangles. And then you're able to mute the video and the audio and do a screen share once you're in the room or once you are broadcasting. And the buttons on the bottom and the video itself, that is the part that we did last week. So if you after this are curious how we did that, then go back to that video on YouTube or on Twitch and watch it there. So if you want to run this demo in the first part of our blog called Introducing Daily's new spatialization demo, which Lisa wrote, here is a quick script to get you started. So you clone our demo that we have available on GitHub, and then you run build and start, and that's it. Then you get the thing running. Then you get into the whole, well, you need a daily account, you need a daily room to get started. I explain a little bit about that in the very first video, so you can also watch that. But right now we are on part 3, running a 2D world for video call participants to traverse. So we are doing user spawning, navigation, and remote user updates this week. So let's see. So we're using Typescript for the whole demo, but you can also use vanilla JavaScript. of course, for all the things. And as it says here, we chose PixiJS as a rendering framework. So this is PixiJS, which is an HTML5 creation engine. It is for 2D WebGL render stuff, so you can do a lot of different things with it. For example, this background is made with it. They have a few other examples. What you can see is like a simple thing that flows around. There's some, let's see, I didn't want to go to the examples, I think. I just wanted to see like cool things that they made. Well, anyway, they have a lot of things. They have good API documentation. I'll explain a little bit about the things that we use there. But yeah, this is a cool thing to get started with. And let me just show you what we did with it. I've already read this blog this morning, and I'm stuck. I kept being stuck with a whole new world song in my head for the whole day. I almost wanted to wear an Aladdin shirt today, but I couldn't find it. So anyway, thank you, Lisa, for that. So our world class, which is, okay, so let me just go back a step. So here we have our code that we've seen in the previous videos. And in our room file, which was where we defined the whole big room where everybody's in, we created a new world, which sounds awesome, creating a whole new world. So if you go into this file, which is the world.ts, sorry, I was a little bit distracted because I always think this is written wrong, but it's just RLD, just looks weird for me as a non-native speaker, I guess. Anyway, I keep getting sidetracked. Sorry about that. So here we have the world file, which is, it imports a lot of things that we go through. So we're installing Pixie. Probably gonna explain that later. But here we have the class where we define all the properties, and where we have the constructor just as we have in the room.ts. We had this constructor there. And here room world, sorry, the world.ts. I'm just pin it here. So what do we say in the blog? So we talk a little bit about the world's constructor. So let's just go through this. So this we get the element called world, which is, I hope, here. Yes, so we have an empty div here called world in the index file. That's what we created right in the beginning. So we have turned this on once you, like, we show this whole call div once you enter the call itself. And here we create the Pixie world, basically. So we set the width to the offset width, and the offset width, it means the full width of your screen. So you have all different kind of widths and heights, but offset width and offset height just gets you the full screen size of the browser, like the viewport. And then you have to say resize to the world. And then we set a background color, and that is just that's just this dark background color. And we have a resolution of 1. So what does this do? So we can go into the PixiJS API documentation, and we can look into no, what was it called again? .application. So this creates a whole new application. It automatically creates the renderer, the ticker, and the root container. So what we said here is, why do we set it to resize to? Yes. So set the HTML element or window to automatically resize the renderer's view element to match the width and height. Okay, so the div itself that we have in the background, the world's div, that is being resized to the entire screen, so that we are always, sorry about the buzz. I thought I turned off my notifications. Just hold on a second. Yeah. Okay. So it resizes the div to the whole screen. And let's see, what do we have here? Resolution. So resolution, just options.resolutions. It's the device pixel ratio of the renderer. You could set this if you want to do something higher. So for example, if you have if you know the device pixel ratio, you could set it to that. And for those who don't know, device pixel ratio is how dense the pixels are, basically. So how many, so there's a whole thing. CSS pixels is something different than screen pixels, which is something different than resolution pixels. It's a whole complex thing, but device pixels is basically how many CSS pixels, how many pixels are in one CSS pixel. For example, this phone I have here, it's CSS thinks it's like how much would it be? I don't know. I'm just guessing. So for example, it would say it is 400 by 1200 or something like that. It doesn't mean that the whole resolution of the thing is 400 by 1200, because it could also be 800 by 2400 and then just compacted. So then it would be a device pixel from for 2. All right. Hi everyone, all the new people in the chat. Thank you for joining. By the way, if you have any questions during this whole thing, you can ask in the chat, and either I will see it or Jess or someone else will answer your questions. But we'll just go through this a little bit right now. So max frame per second, we set it to 30 for the ticker. So the ticker is basically your loop. So every time, like every frame goes through a loop once. So you want to go with 30 frames per second, because that's basically what we also have with our video. 30 frames per second is plenty for what we're trying to do. We don't want to have like 120 frames per second first person shooter. We're just walking through this 2D environment for a little bit. Then we create a window frame. So we have pixie.graphics. Oh, there's a whole thing here. Oh, I always love it when this works. So this is being used to render shapes. Okay, so what are we trying to create? We're creating a frame. Begin fill is the same background color. So we're drawing a rectangle. I'm not entirely sure why we have it twice. Why do we have it twice? Background color of the rendered area shown if not transparent. I don't know. What would happen if we would just remove one of these? Let's just check it out. Let's remove this. And then let's restart the whole and rerun it again. Doesn't seem to be that big of an issue. Or that's not true. It's probably cached. So let me make sure that the cache is cleared. Oh, yeah, so no. Huh. Okay, so we might not need this. Or am I just not breaking it because I'm doing something wrong? Let's just check if this is actually running on the same place. Okay, so I guess my code is just doing something different right now. I'm not sure where I have my code. Where is this? Okay, you know what? No, it doesn't matter. Right now we are just, but I am curious. I'm sorry. I get distracted often during these things. If you've watched it before, I either start doing into debugging mode or just get distracted by something completely different. Right now I'm distracted by why is this code not doing what I think it's doing. So this is the same folder, I guess. Spatialization. This is also a spatialization folder. Oh, wait. I need to build the whole thing. Like the whole development setup is not great because it's just a demo. Like, I need to build it. Oh, I need to build it to make sure that it's actually doing something. It doesn't auto update and everything, but that's okay. Like this is not going to be a production environment thing. This is just oh, can't find frame. Did you mean frames? No, I did not mean frames. Okay. Let's just see what happens when we remove this background color. That's probably going to be much easier. Where was I? Oh yeah, this is just a demo. This is just for inspiration, but how you can build it and not going to be like a perfect setup for everything would be nice, but yeah. Not something very feasible, of course, to do that for everything. Oh, right. So there we are. And then you see that like there's a screen. Why is this like this? A little bit weird. I will take it. I think this is just a size. Sorry, if you hear a helicopter in the background, that is because there is some trauma helicopter going on right now. Hopefully, everybody's okay. Alright. So, let's just go back to how it was. So I understand now. So the background color is just doing the whole background of everything. And this is a window frame where we set another background and we do other things with that frame as well. But that's probably something we get into later. The other background is just a fallback. Command error R. Oh, thank you, Leah, for saying that there is no background noise hearable. That's good. Alright, so... Okay, so next part what we have is the world container. So we have a container here which holds users and focus zone containers. So this is a general purpose object that holds children. It builds in support for advanced rendering features like masking and filtering. So this is where we are able to walk around in this world. So it's a default world size, which is 2000 by 2000 apparently. That is what you saw, the whole thing. And then you have sortable children. So that you have an order of array, also with the z-index, which when you go over each other, walking over each other, that's something you can do, I guess. We'll get into that a little bit later also as well. Let's see. Let's go back to the block, see if I have forgotten something. Oh, okay. So we have the world container. Okay. The renderer is responsible for drawing everything. A tick is a single update of the world, something I mentioned. We set it to resize our renderer view to our world div. The div size is set in our... Oh, okay, so I was slightly mistaken. The resize is setting the world to our div, not the div to the world size. Okay, so basically if you have you just make sure that it's like the size of your div so that if you resize it will keep working. But it does flicker like this. In our constructor, so we have the graphics, frame size set for Pixie renderer. That frame will be is what the user will see on their screen. And once we have our frame width and shades, Pixie container, which is going to be our world container. This will be the container that holds our main world space. So yeah, so unless the user has a very large browser window, they will probably not see the entire world at the same time. And then we have a floor. Where are we here? Back to the floor, back to the constructor. So we have a floor. The floor is where it's being added. The floor is being added to the world. And the world is being added to the frame. And the floor is being used later. It's going to be a sprite. Okay, so let's see. Sprite objects is the base for all textured objects that are rendered to the screen. Okay, so that's an object with texture. So that's probably the grid that you see in the background. Yes, draw our floor grid on top of the world. I'm on top of the world. Hey, sorry, I need to don't let me sing. Afterwards, we create a container for our users and add it as a child to the world. So here we have user containers, container that will hold our users. So is this where all the users go in? I think so. And the users container will also go on top of the world again, as a child to the world. And then containers that will hold our room focus zone elements. Then we have like focus zone elements, which are, okay, let me show you. So these things like the rooms here and the broadcast area on the top, those are focus zones. Ignore the OBS thing, by the way. And document.get element by the world event childs. Okay, so then we add the whole app to the world div. And that's the whole constructor. So now we have created our world. So that is this part. So in the room.ts we created a new world, and we're going to use that, like the whole constructor is then being done in the world. So let's look at what's the next thing that happens here. So things that we do here is destroying the world, which is probably not something that we're going to look at now, maybe later. We're showing the world. We have onMove things. We're starting the world. What is show world, by the way? Oh, show world is just showing and hiding divs. By the way, does anybody know how to get back to the place where you were previously? I always forget these useful keyboard shortcuts. If you're using VS Code and know how to do that, please let me know in the chat. That would be great. Because I always like go look for show world again to know where I was left. Oh, of course, that's in a different file. So configure the world, starting the world. Where do we start with this explanation? Well, we're going back to here, starting the world. So these are just extra properties that we're gonna talk about later. This is the function world.start, which is here, right in that. A lot of things happen here again. First, it starts with this update function within the ticker. First, add a handler to the ticker PixiJS created for us as part of the PixiJS. Yeah. So we have this ticker that is being added to the app. So that means every time a frame happens, so 30 frames per second. Oh, thank you, Carl. By the way, this is Carl in the chat. He is our very newest addition to the DevRel team. I'm really happy that he joined us. Thank you, Carl, for saying that with Control minus, which was probably Command minus for me or something, or Control as well. Control minus. You get it back to your last cursor position. Okay. Oh, nice. Nice. And so Control plus. No. Control minus and Control Shift minus. That is great. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, Control Shift minus even on a Mac, and Control minus and Command Control Shift. Command minus changes the text. Oh, whoops. Yes, it changes the text size. You are absolutely correct. Command plus plus. Okay, back to this. Another segue into how to use Visual Studios. So many hashtags, so many snippets that we can use here. Just kidding. Ensure our world is correctly sized. So we have the resize that is, it probably does. Wait, does that do what I think it does? We call it just once. Make sure it will be the correct size. Oh yes, so. Okay, I need to play around with this because I'm now just doing wrong things. Control minus. Yeah, so this app.resize is making sure that the world is the size of the div and nothing else. So it's always the size of the div. But I was with the ticker. The ticker is all the frames. So every frame, it goes into the ticker. And so that's 30 frames per second. So that it knows what to do, like moving someone around, changing how someone looks, things like that, turning on and off someone's video from the other side or your own. We've gone into what we actually do during one of those update functions, but in the room itself, but we'll also look at how it works here. Delta time, I think, is, if I remember correctly, is this, yeah, the milliseconds, I think, since the last time it was that the frame was happening. So a frame is not always like, or oh, so sorry about this. So the frame is not, the tick is not exactly the frame sometimes, because it depends on how much JavaScript is running in the background. You cannot always get exactly 30 frames per second. So you need to know the exact time something has happened in between. And that is a delta, so that you know what the user speed is. But we'll probably get back into that later. Sorry, just gonna still playing around with the minus things. Okay, so we have the start function again. We have a broadcast zone. Are we going into that immediately? We create a single broadcast zone instance. This is like the area where people can broadcast from. And then we have two desk zones here. And those are these two zones where 4 users can gather and only hear each other in the larger focus tiles. So yeah, we'll dig into the implementation details for the zones later in a future post. So the zones itself, like, don't worry about those right now. We say we have a broadcast zone, we give it an ID, and we say what size it is, and then we move that specific zone to a place, and add it to the focus zones containers and the focus zones itself. Focus zone container is a div that we set in the index.html file here somewhere. And then the two desk zones, we do similar thing with it. Okay, so the next thing what happens after starting and creating those zones and beginning the update loop is we're going to initialize the local user. So we have the session ID of the user, and we have the video itself, if it has video, I think. Is it the Boolean? No, this is the video track itself. Yeah, the tracks, the other is the user. So we have the video and the session ID, so we can create the local user. And what that is like, so that is adding the user to our world. So we are spawning the local user using init local user. So that is yourself. That is like me, my own character here. So we start out with creating an audio context. Audio context is just a browser API, web API. So this is not something from either Daily or Pixie. It's straight into your browser. And the next post is all about the web audio API. So we're gonna go into that way further than what we're going to show today in the next stream. But you can also already look into the next post, next blog post. What are we saying here? The audio context is responsible for our entire audio processing graph. Yeah, so things that we're doing there is about going, like changing the volume and stuff like that. So we have the world center, which is the default world size divided by 2, that like it's, or just another word for 1,000. And then we spawn at a sort of a random place. So we're using a rand function, which is some basic randomness here that Lisa made. And she went with something that just feels right. So somewhere between -300 and +300, and then you just get put onto the world. And the good thing about that is that if a lot of people joining at the same time, then then you're not all on top of each other. You're just at different places, so you can still see yourself. Because otherwise, if you don't see yourself, or if someone else on top of you, or you don't see a video, you think that something might be wrong. So just spawning it at random places. You could also just keep a track of where everybody's been spawned and just spawn them somewhere else, spawn yourself somewhere else. But this also helps. This is also a good way to do it. It's not completely foolproof, of course, but good enough for our use case. So then we're doing a create user, which we'll go into a bit later. We have a session ID and then the position and then the name here. And then the true is, what is the true? If it's local, if it's you. And yeah, it's you because you are named you. And then we will render the worlds with this.app.render. So make sure that you are already created, and then afterwards create the world. The world will allow us to cross-check collisions and make sure the local user is not colliding with focus zones. That is what we're doing here, get final location position. Okay, so let's see. Is that something that we're talking about here? No. Okay, so we have all the focus. Oh, that's because we're going to go into focus zones later. So we have all the focus zones that we look through and see if we hit them or not. So, but we go over that in a later stream when we're talking about focus zones. Okay, Control minus. So good, so good. It's going to be so useful. So this is the local user. So we're setting our local user. We're getting our final position after this final position has been set. And then we center the world container on the local user. So the world container is basically the viewport of yourself. So we're now moving the world container for everybody. So The fun thing is about these things. It's like, it looks like you're walking around the whole screen, but basically what happens is the div is centered, but the world is moving below you. But that's just for you and not for everybody else. So that's why you're centering the world container. By the way, did I say that Lisa used to be a game dev? So she knows a lot of these things that I actually don't know, but only have some slight ideas about this. So Lisa created this whole demo and I'm just explaining it here. It's like, yes, it's like old school Zelda on NES. Well, I think old school Zelda on NES had like screens that you can walk through the next screen and then it sort of moves. But similar, yes. So what are we saying here? Okay, so once the user is nicely positioned, we center the world container on the sprite. We update the local video track. We update the local user's video track. The other track is not relevant for the local user. Right, so we say user.updates tracks. So you can, in update tracks, it's something that we will go over a little bit later. You can say video track, audio track, and screen track. Screen is the screenshot track. Since we don't want you to hear yourself, but we do want you to see yourself, then you say like update tracks with only the video. And then we have sending the zone data, and we're sending those to the main world or to everybody else, to all the users. Yeah, so we're sending the zone data and the position data to all the other users, and then we set a key listener to listen for keys. So listen keys is listening to on key down and on key up, and see if... Okay, so we have a whole navigation things about key listener. So we're checking which keys are pressed. And do we have something here? That's something that we go. So we're making an array of all or an object of all the keys that have been pressed, or an array of, yeah, not an object. So we have pressed a key. Yeah. Again, if we want, we can later go through that object and see if some key is pressed. That is useful if we go through the updates loop. So if we go to like every frame, we want to see like, oh, what are you currently pressing? Is it the right arrow? Then yes, okay, then we move your character a little bit to the right. And the send zone data, we're getting local users. And then once you join the zone, then you send that zone data. Also something for later. Position data a little bit clearer maybe because we've gone through that already. Yes, so send position data. So we're seeing if we are currently in the global zone. So that's not the other bits and pieces, like the whole big thing and not the room. And if we are in the global zone, then we're broadcasting it with a position. So if you've seen the stream from last week, then you know that the on move is, no, wait, this is another thing. Yes, so the on move here is something that we set into the room, where we broadcast is sending data to all the users. So you send the position to all users, and that users receive then data called pass change, and that will update all everybody there. So what we're doing, everybody for their worlds basically. So what we're doing here is, where are we? Get zone data. I'll move. Skis. Oh no, I'm getting all over the place. Yeah, so we're sending the position data and we're setting the zone data when you initially sort of join as user so that they know that you're there and where you are. But now that you're there yourself, we also want to know that, like, who else is here, because you might not be by yourself. You might not probably not the very first user. So we are going into we went over how room instance listens for participant joined event from daily. When it receives the event, it calls to init remote participant. Init remote participant. Does it call for init remote participant? Am I copy pasting something wrong? Is it called something else now? Let's see. Oh wait, I'm searching in the wrong place. Why am I not finding it? So we have the room. The room has all of this. On move. Update local. On participant join, handle participant joins. World.init remote participant. Oh, there it is. Why was I in the wrong file maybe? Oh, there's a typo here. Okay. Can someone make a note of that? We have to fix this typo here. Init remote participant. I don't know what a participant is, but I will fix this. Definitely. User may have created this. So init remote participant, that will be called when a participant is either joining the call or, as we saw last time, handle participant joined. We also dump everything the very first time you joined. Let's see if that is something that is correct. Handle participant joined. So, oh yeah, so handle participant joined happens when, so I join the room. What they do is sending all their data to that participant. So send data dump to participant. And what then happens is, well, they're just sending all of their positioning and zone data to me instead of to, oh, here's also the typo. We need to also fix it in the blog. At least we're consistent, except for here. Consistent typos. So we check if the user for this session has already been initialized. Init remote participant. Going back again. So here we are creating the participant. So we are doing the same thing as when you create yourself, but instead you're not local. So here we have all the username and the position data. But we check if the user for this session has already been initialized, because that can happen if an order is out of if an update is out of order. We call create user with default off world coordinations. That's like, okay, so yeah. So what we are doing is, we know that there's a user. We're creating them somewhere away, far away. And then at one point, there's an app message that is being sent with the with this .broadcast. We're send app message here with all the data. So we already know where the users are, or that we have users, and then we're just waiting until we get all the data with the real coordinates so that we can move them to where they are supposed to be. Because the participant joined does not contain that, participant join only has simple data about all the participants. So not like the whole, just not the whole data, just the user session ID and the username. I'm not entirely sure anymore why that was, but we talked about that last time, I guess. So oh, we're not even including a username right now, or maybe we are. Right, so the participant joined is like if it's a daily. I think we've updated it. It's a daily event from DailyJS. So it's basically if the participant has joined the call. Sorry, it was kind of lost for a second. So all of these, like participant joined and app message, those are all the daily messages that you get. So once a participant joins your call, which is basically what we're doing, a video call, then you get the session ID, and then later we're waiting until the app message has been sent, and then we're sending all the other data like positions or zones or the whole dump. One more info about that part, watch our previous video, or read the previous blog post where it's all explained as well. So one thing to remember is that the order of participant joined and joined meeting events is not guaranteed. So it could be that you get joined meeting before participant join, or the other way around. And for that reason, there might be a situation where, oh wait, that is the wrong thing. I'm sorry, I'm just confused a little bit. Hold on, going back to this. We're not talking about that part anymore. I feel so. You know what? I'm kind of lost for a second. Okay, recoup. Just drink a bit of water. Does anybody know a nice joke or something? Okay, I'm back. So we've seen this create user function a few times. Sorry, I just need to relax a little bit again. We've seen the create user function a few times already, where we're creating the local user, but we also create the remote user with this. So this has the user ID or the session ID. It has the coordinates of the user, and the username. This is what you're all sending with the create user. And if you are a local user, then we decide to send some add extra callbacks. So when you enter or leave the vicinity of a person or another person, then you subscribe to their video and audio tracks or unsubscribe from them. And we also have an onJoin zone function that's being set with these arguments here. If you're not a local user, then you have some empty. Yeah, these are all empty, so you just have the coordinates, so you don't have to know when that user is entering the vicinity of someone else. You could do it, but there's no use for us in this case. And these functions, like the sub to track, the unsub from tracks, and the onJoin, so or maybe not on join zone. Is that also a, yeah, that's also being passed as a property from the room itself. That's this function. We've talked about that function in the previous video. Oh, that was a wrong return. So we have this create user here. That was from the init remote participant, but also init local participant. If you, let's see, when a user first joined the call, they handled subscribing, unsubscribing, yeah. And then the model is added to our users container. And our users container, we, we created here when, which was a container that holds all our users. Now for the fun part. Well, hopefully more of this was fun. We have the update function. We've seen the update function in the start. Where was the start again? So that was this function in the ticker. So every tick, every frame basically, the update function is being called. So that happens. This is a function that happens quite a lot of times. So you need to make sure that this is very, very well performant. So the first thing we do in each tick is process any textures that we may have in our texture queue. It's not recommended to create new textures if they can be reused. For example, our seating spots, they all have the same texture applied to them. So we are not, the processing textures, we're trying to do that as little as possible. So we're just creating new objects for each spot. So the seating spots that are like those squares here. I think also this table here is also one of the textures. This is why we've created a texture singleton, which can retrieve existing reusable textures and generate new ones. Are we going through that later, or are we going to do it now? I think we're going to do that later. So let's just go back and not confuse it too much. So you just have to know that we're getting all the textures and we're processing anything that still needs to be added to the world. If you're a local user, then we're just stopping here. Then we have an update all robots. Robots is our testing tool. We're not talking about that. That is actually going to be all the way to the end where we're going to test the entire suite. We're talking about how we're doing that. Oh, so sorry. If you're not the local user, of course, then we're going to return. So, and then we're going to process all the users. If we do this, you are always the local user. This is if the local user has not yet been created. So we're going to process all the users, and we process users. I guess we're process the local user interaction with all the other users in the world. Check if any focus zone interactions for the local user and check the navigation. Process the users. Process users is setting them where they're supposed to be. There is a lot of things here that we're going to go over later. Check focus zones. Checks if you are in a certain zone. Focus zones can be anything that implements the eye zone. Also something that we're going to go into later. But check navigation, that is something that we're going to do now. So check navigation is see where we're going. So we figure out what the real speed should be. This does local user, that's speed. The user thing we're going to show later, but speed is a thing that's being set when you create a user, like how fast a user should be able to walk. So with the delta times the speed is like how what the real speed is, like how far are we supposed to walk. So we're getting the current position and set the new coordinates to the same x and y values. So we have new x and new y. We're going to use that later to move them to somewhere. Right now it's like the current position. And then if arrow keys are, or WASD can also be used. Didn't even check that. That's fun. So instead of the arrow keys, you can also use WASD. You cannot see it, but I'm doing that right now. So if you're like the key listener is something that we showed before. It's here. No, it's here. And there's a on function that is like, if we have pressed a certain key, then do that function. So if we have pressed the W, then the new Y should be less. So X, Y, if you are pressing up or pressing W, you should go a little bit up, so the Y should be less than before. And with S and arrow down, it's different, and arrow left and arrow right, it's right or left, of course. So the X should go back and forth. Now, if you are doing up and left at the same time at work, I wonder, this yeah, you can actually run. We're using up and W at the same time. So there's a running thing. So this could be better, of course. It could be like that it only does it once. So check on either W or arrow up and do it once, or you like, oh, that's a secret thing. That's a secret function that you can run through the whole thing that people might not know. The nice thing about having it like this is that you can do like up and right at the same time, where you can use up and D to go up right as well. If no keys were pressed, the coordinates remain identical, and we're doing nothing. So this is just to make sure that it's a little bit more performant. Just return if nothing has changed. And then if the user have moved, move them to the new coordinates, and then we have this move to function, which we have actually defined here in the, no, is that true? So move to is move to this.x is, and get bounce. What is get bounce? Oh, that's a Pixie thing. Okay, never mind. Just ignoring me. So the move to is moving the X and Y and making sure that calculates and returns the world bounce. Not entirely sure. Why are we doing that? Are we explaining that here in the blog? Okay. No, we're not explaining that yet. Anyway, how far are we along? Oh, we just have a little bit more ways to go. I'm sorry this takes a little bit longer than I expected. I was going on a tangent here and there. So please bear with me just like 10 more minutes maybe at tops. So let's go through it a little bit faster. So if the user moved, move them to a new coordinate. with move to. So this whole user thing that we're going to go into a different time. We have the focus zones again, which we're going to go into later. So we're checking those as well. We're getting the final position, and then we're sending the position data to all the other participants. And then we're centering the world's container on the local user, which is like moving to the new position. So send pos data, that is the final thing that we're doing. So we are having the local user here. We get the zone data, which we are talking about later. And then we're finally, like we talked about this a little bit earlier as well, this is the same as when you are doing it for the very first time when you're created, but then now with the new position. So let's see if I missed anything. Zone data, the type of two pieces of information, what zone ID the user is currently in, and what spot ID within that zone they're occupying. Our global zone ID. Yes. So if you are like a spot ID is one of these, like which place are you in? Because there's not a lot more places than one. There you shouldn't be with two people in one chair. At least not in this place. So the desk zone has up to 4 zone mates. A broadcast zone cannot have zone mates because there's only one spot within it. The global zone can have zone mates, but we still want people who are in more specific zones to see who is approaching or moving outside of their zone. So we want to see if people are gonna go bother you in your room. And finally, so we're handling other users' position updates. When are we doing that? Update participants. All right, so we're sending a pos change, a position change to other users. So this is the handle app message. So other users receive the app message called pos change. And in that data, we have like, we have from who it is and what the X and Y is. So then we go back to the world, and here we say, oh, this user has, this user with this session ID has moved. And we're seeing if this user actually exists. If not, well, we're creating the user, and then we're moving that user to that new position, which we'll get into later. Not today, another time. So we have this 2D world now. We have the users within the 2D world. We know how we implement the navigation itself, and how we send those positional data to each other with like this send app message thing. And in the next post, we're gonna go into like how we handle video and audio tracks, how we calculate. Like, let me just show myself. So we're going to go into how we handle the video and audio tracks that we get from daily, and how that node chain, what it's called, is constructed. So we can calculate that proximity between the local user and the users around them, and then maybe change the audio. Let me just check. Are we even talking about that as well? I think so. So how we change the whole managing users' media tracks to implement spatial audio and video. That is the next time. So I hope that you will all join next week. There is one other thing that I wanted to share. Well, of course, we are hiring. Hooray. We're always hiring. Everybody's hiring. Well, not everybody's hiring at this point, but we're still hiring front-end developers and other things. So if you other people. So if you're going, if you go to daily.co/jobs, then you can find all the jobs that might be of interest. There's a whole explanation of how we do things at Daily. And yeah, that would be great to have some of you as as my colleagues. I'm also planning to do instead on top of these weekly streams. I'm planning to do less organized. Sometimes I'm gonna do some live coding when I have the time to do live coding, to actually implement live streaming from Daily, a whole system, kind of like OBS. If you know what OBS is, so it's my live streaming software that I'm currently using, and doing my own dog fooding. I'm going to create that OBS, but then within Daily using the VCS that we've talked about in a video in the past. And when I'm gonna work on it, I'm just gonna live stream that. So then you can get to learn with me how I learn how to use all of this, how I find the blog posts that are relevant for me. And yeah. And hopefully I'll see you there as well. So subscribe if you want a notification when I go online. It might be European time zone, so if you're European, that's great. Thank you everybody for watching. Hopefully I'll see you in the next stream. And if you want to watch the others, they're also on YouTube. And yeah, see you next time. Thank you so much. Bye.